What is this? Don't click away. This is Civilization 5, one of my top 3 favourite strategy games of all time, and today in this video, I want to talk about the role of Civilization 5. For many of you, this may be a relatively new introduction. For others, you are die-hard fans like me. Civilization 5 is now over 10 years old, and one of the things that I like about it, straight off the bat here, before we get into the real meat of the video, is the fact that you can start the game in any era. By the way, in case you're wondering why he started with 1,000,000 units, I've chosen to start the game here later in the game, because I want to play around with one of my favourite units, in fact maybe my favourite late game unit of all time, the XCOM squad, and you'll see me do just that. But, no spoilers, I'd encourage you to sit back, relax, and enjoy me for this discussion piece, talking about Civilization 5, and of course this, Humankind, the latest, greatest 4X strategy game. It's 11 years Civilization 5's junior, and it shows, right? It shows in a lot of ways. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the video. Anyway, sit back and get comfy. Let's jump straight back in to Civilization 5. So as I say, this game is not new, and that won't be unfamiliar to many of you. If you're familiar with it, then you already know it, and if not, you can probably tell by looking at it. However, I argue in the case of Civilization 5 that despite it being over a decade old, it holds up very well. And as a side note, to those of you who join me in my Humankind live streams or watch my Humankind videos and say, oh, I'd love to play it but it's too expensive, or I'd love to play it but my computer can't handle it, almost any computer will be able to handle Civilization 5. And I think still to this day, that's one of its strengths. Now, I know, you could argue, well, look, any computer can handle a 10-year-old game because it's a 10-year-old game and we're 10 years in the future. And you'd be right. Absolutely. But I think one of the things that really struck me about Civilization 5 was just how smooth it runs. There are no issues on any version of Windows in my experience ever. It almost never, ever crashes. This thing is solid, it is reliable, but more importantly, it's a really fun 4X strategy game experience. Now, this video isn't a direct comparison between Humankind and Civ 6 or Civ 5. I could do something like that, but really that would require a lot more research, evidence, gathering lots of footage from lots of different videos. In this one, I want to have more of a discussion with you, as we've already done, and my next point largely focuses more on Humankind. How are these two games different, and is Civ 5 still an enjoyable experience for me, and can it be for you? Let's discuss. So Humankind obviously has many things that Civ doesn't have, right? You can change cultures throughout the game. Your military is arguably a lot more interesting. I mean, take a look at these battles. I'm sorry, Civ fans, but I do have to be honest. In my opinion, and this is but one man's opinion, the combat in Humankind vastly outweighs Civilization's combat. And to be honest, when I came back and played Civ 5 for this video, and when I went back and played Civilization 6 a couple of days ago when I uploaded that Civilization 30th anniversary video where I talked through the different things that Firaxis and 2K are doing to celebrate the franchise's 30th anniversary, and maybe some Civilization 7 announcements if we're really lucky. Anyway, when I went back to play these games, after, granted, being very invested in Humankind for the last few weeks, in fact months, apparently, it really did strike me that Humankind's combat is, for me personally, much more enjoyable. I think the fact that units can be stacked into one, you know, that you can march armies around, makes the game much more playable. Here you can see in this gameplay of Civ 5 that I've just finished recording, I'm only managing a few units, but I felt like the micromanagement of having to move each individual troop and not be able to stack them was really frustrating. Now, I know that Civilization 6 fixes this a little bit, right? You can have the armadas and so forth. Basically, you can combine up to 3 units into one. But even that lets you down a little bit, because then when you go into combat, you can't separate them back out. Right? And that's the beauty of Humankind's combat, and one of the things that I really, really enjoy about it is that I can bring all my units together and move them as one army, which makes sense. And then, when it comes time to fight, they can each fight their own battles. I can bring my archers to the back, so on and so forth. Let's not even get started on Humankind's vastly superior geography. However, I would like to note that even in Civilization 5, which is granted a more basic, stripped back, simple version of Civilization 6, the map still looks good. Any 4X historical strategy gamer should really enjoy both Civilization 5 and Civilization 6's maps. They're very similar. Civ 6, of course, is a lot more dynamic with those natural events. Humankind, take note. But by and large, I have to say, even though I didn't as much enjoy the combat still, I very much enjoyed the map play. The settling the cities, the exploring the world. Even in this game, where I, unlike my Civ 6 video the other day where I started at, naturally where you would start at the quote-unquote beginning, in this game I started at the end, yet I still had fun exploring my way around. And I think that Civilization 5 really captures that fun element of exploration still. There's a whole nother video, probably, to discuss how the two franchises approach settling cities. Amplitude and Humankind prefer that territory-based approach. Civ prefers more of an open, a blank canvas approach, right? You can kinda settle anywhere so long as it's not too close. Arguably more freeing, but also potentially a little more frustrating. I don't know. I'll leave that for another video, but I would like to hear your thoughts below. Anyway, moving on to my next point, one of the things that I reflected on quite heavily after playing this Civilization 5 and having just finished a Humankind livestream as well, I've just come off the back of that, so both games are very fresh in my mind, just so you know. One of the other things that really struck me was city management and empire management, which I know, kickback, yawn, how boring, but hear me out. One of the things that really, that I found, to be honest, a little off-putting, and I'm not trying to dog on Civ at all, but one of the things that I found, shall we say, outdated in Civilization's format now, was the sort of the city building and empire management stuff. In Civilization 5, it's super easy, which has its own strengths, and I still to this day recommend anybody who's interested in playing 4X games to pick up Civ 5 first. It is such a great starting point, not because it's simple and boring, but because it's relatively easy to pick up. And that goes for the city thing as well. You know, you build buildings in Civ 5 and they all just sort of cram into one city. Civilization 6 took it a little bit further. It let us play with the map a bit more, right? We could build districts. The district system didn't launch perfectly, and it's come a long way, and now it's actually very good. However, I still find a couple of little outdated things about it, and you have to acknowledge, even Civ 6 is 5 years old now, you know, the fact that you can only place them once, and you can't destroy them. Little things about the Civ 6 experience that now that Humankind has spoilt me a little bit, I find that when I come back to Civ, don't get me wrong, I still love it. And this channel will absolutely still be home to Civilization 5, 6, and I really hope and pray, I'm living off hopium at the moment, for Civilization 7 as well. You can rest assured when that bad boy comes out, I will be all over it like a Donkey Kong. However, that's not the point. And actually, to round out that last point, and coming off the back of a couple of frustrations and outdated features in Civ, I want to now, at the end of this video, address some of the things that I still love about Civ more than Humankind, and really more specifically, some of Humankind's key weaknesses. I think that, actually, above all, though, Humankind's culture system still draws me back to it. I love the fact that the game just changes again and again and again, but look, here I go again, getting caught up on the positives. Let's talk about the not-so-positives, and why I still prefer Civ in many ways. I'm not sure if it's just me, it could be you as well, but I feel like if I want to sit down for a little bit and play a game, it is arguably easier for me to do that in Civ. I also think that Civ's multiplayer, not you Civ 5, but Civ's multiplayer is a much better, more formulated, more well-rounded experience. So if you're looking to play multiplayer, and I've heard some good things about Humankind's from some of you guys, shout out to you guys, Gareth and Huck, but actually, by and large, you have to admit, Humankind's multiplayer is not stable, and it's been out for 2 months. Neither is the Mac version. And as someone who's played the Mac version of Civ 5, I can say it works very well. So definitely when I'm sitting down looking for a really stripped back but still deeply complex and enjoyable experience with all of those wonderful elements that 4X strategy games provide. You know, wonders, race to space, warfare, city building, empire management. I still find that as much as I love Humankind, and as much as, at the moment, full disclosure, Humankind is my favourite 4X historical strategy game, I'm just honestly over the moon. Now I have so many choices. And this might not be the conclusion that you came here for. And in fact, many of you have probably already clicked away. But I'd like to leave you on a note of positivity, which may be unusual for me. But honestly, today I have played hours of Humankind, hours of Civ 5, and yesterday hours of Civ 6. And even though none of these experiences are perfect, and you've probably picked up on that throughout this video, man, they are three really enjoyable, and within the constraints of their 4X strategy genres, dang different experiences. Each one, even Civ 5 and Civ 6, but especially when you jump to Humankind, present all those similar things that I love with difference and experience of their own. Overall, it is fantastic to have a roster of wonderful 4X strategy games. And I did read a comment here, just to finish off this video. I read a comment yesterday. Somebody commented and said, I think we're in the golden age of 4X. I think we're in the golden age of strategy. And while some die-hard early Civ fans may disagree with me, commentor, I agree with you. Not just Civ, not just Humankind. Think about all these other great titles. Stellaris, Victoria, Hearts of Iron. There's a lot of fun stuff on the horizon, and I think it's a great time to be a 4X strategy gamer. I'll see you next time.